Amina had always lived a simple life in her small village, where everything moved slowly and everyone knew each other. Her home was made of mud bricks, and the roof often leaked when it rained. But it was still the place where she felt safe. She grew up surrounded by fields, open skies, and the warm voices of her family. Even though they had very little, they tried to stay happy with whatever they had. Amina used to help her mother with daily chores, fetch water from the well, and take care of her younger siblings. She dreamed of going to school like other children in the village, but her family did not have enough money for that. Life changed when her father fell seriously sick. He could no longer work in the fields, and their small savings were spent on medicines that did not help much. Day by day, her family found it harder to buy food or even pay for basic needs. Amina watched her mother worry silently. Her face tired and her eyes filled with fear about what would happen to the family. Amina tried her best to help, but there was only so much a young girl could do. One morning, strangers arrived in the village. They spoke politely, saying they could provide work for young people in the city. They promised good wages and a chance to support their families. Amina's parents listened to them with hope because they were desperate for any opportunity that could save their home. Amina was young but understood enough to see that her parents' hearts were heavy with worry. She wished she could stay, but she also wanted to help them get out of their difficult situation. When the strangers offered to take her to the city for work, her parents felt they had no other choice. They believed she would find a better life, and they trusted the promises made to them. Amina looked at her mother's trembling hands and her father's tired eyes. She agreed, not because she wanted to leave, but because she wanted to ease their burden. She hugged her siblings tightly, trying to be strong as she said goodbye. The journey began early in the morning. Amina sat quietly in the back of a small vehicle, with two other girls from nearby villages. They looked just as unsure as she felt. The road stretched endlessly, and the familiar fields slowly disappeared behind them. The air became different, the sounds became louder, and everything felt strange. Amina tried to stay hopeful, imagining that she would find a good job and send money back home. But when they reached the city, things did not go the way she expected. The people who brought her did not take her to a workplace. Instead, they handed her over to a household where she was told she would stay. She was confused and scared but tried to stay calm. The family she was left with did not explain much. They simply told her to work, clean, cook, and stay quiet. She realized she was not free to leave or contact her family. Her heart sank, but she tried to keep her hope alive. Days turned into weeks, and Amina worked from morning until night. The people around her rarely spoke kindly. She felt invisible, like her feelings did not matter. She missed her home so deeply that some nights she could not sleep. She wished she could tell her mother that she was all right, even when she wasn't. But there was no way to reach anyone. She was alone in a place where she did not know the faces, the streets, or even the language very well. She remembered the promises made to her family, and it hurt her to think how different the truth was. She did not complain because she feared she might be punished or sent somewhere even worse. She swallowed her sadness and kept working, hoping that one day someone would help her or she would find a chance to go home. Every morning when she woke up, she whispered a small prayer for strength. One day, without any explanation, she was taken from that house and moved to another place. She did not know why this was happening. The new people who had come to take her spoke briefly among themselves, and she noticed the tone of their voices. Her heart beat fast, wondering if her situation was about to get even harder. She had lost track of time, lost the count of days, and sometimes even forgot what month it was. All she knew was that she had to be brave if she wanted to survive. As she was escorted to a different location, she noticed the roads becoming quieter and the buildings changing. They were no longer crowded city blocks but more peaceful streets with small shops and houses. The car finally stopped in front of a simple two-story home with a small garden outside. The air felt different, calmer, almost gentle, but Amina did not let her heart relax. She had learned that expectations often led to disappointment. She was told to stand and wait outside the gate. She looked down at her hands, rough from work, and held them together tightly. She wondered what kind of person lived here. Would they be strict? Would they shout? Would they ignore her? She tried to prepare herself for the worst, because she had already seen enough to know that life rarely gave her comfort. A few minutes later, the gate opened, and a man stepped out. He looked nothing like the people who had taken her before. He wasn't loud, and he didn't look harsh. His face was calm, and his eyes rested on her with a steady expression. He introduced himself as Rashid, speaking in a tone that surprised her. It was gentle, not demanding. He did not ask her to work immediately or speak rudely. Instead, he simply nodded and asked her to come inside. Amina hesitated. Her feet felt heavy, and her heart raced. She didn't know what to expect. She followed him slowly, each step filled with careful caution. Inside the house, she noticed everything was neat and quiet. There were no loud voices, no hurried footsteps, and no cold glares. She stood silently, unsure if she should speak. Rashid showed her a small room with a clean bed and a window that let in soft sunlight. Amina was confused. She had not seen such kindness in a long time. He told her to rest and said she would not be forced to work immediately. His voice was steady, patient, something she was not used to. She nodded without looking up, afraid that showing her emotions might cause trouble. When Rashid left the room, Amina sat on the bed, touching the blanket gently. It felt warm and soft under her fingers. She looked around, taking in the small details. The wooden cabinet, the light curtain, the tiny table in the corner. She had not slept on a bed like this in many months. The simple comfort felt unreal. Tears filled her eyes. Not from sadness, but from confusion and relief mixed together. She wiped them quickly, not wanting to appear weak. That night, she lay awake for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. She wondered why Rashid treated her kindly when others had not. She wondered if she could trust him, or if this was just a temporary calm before things changed again. But a small part of her heart, the part that had refused to give up, whispered that maybe things were finally going to get better. She held on to that small hope tightly as she closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she slept without fear. The next morning, Amina woke up slowly, unsure of where she was at first. For a moment, her mind returned to the old days, the long hours, the cold floors, the endless chores. But then she felt the soft blanket beneath her and remembered she was in a different place now. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Sunlight entered the room through the small window, casting warm patterns on the floor. It was peaceful, and that feeling alone made her heart feel strange, almost unfamiliar. She got up quietly, not knowing what was expected of her. She folded the blanket neatly, a habit she learned long ago, and stood near the door, unsure if she should leave the room or wait. Her hands were pressed together nervously. She didn't want to make a mistake. After a few moments of silence, she opened the door gently and stepped into the hallway. The house smelled clean, like fresh air mixed with the faint scent of tea. She could hear soft movements in another room. When she entered the living area, she saw Rashid arranging some items on a small dining table. He turned when he noticed her standing there. "You're awake," he said in a calm voice. "Good. Breakfast is ready." Amina lowered her eyes and nodded. She didn't know if she should sit or wait for instructions. She stood still, unsure. Rashid noticed her hesitation and pulled out a chair for her. "You can sit," he said simply. "You don't have to be afraid here." His words made something shift inside her chest. She sat slowly, her hands resting on her lap. Rashid poured a cup of tea and placed a small plate of food in front of her. It wasn't fancy, just bread, eggs, and fruit, but to Amina, it felt like a feast. She couldn't remember the last time someone had given her a proper meal without speaking harshly or rushing her. She picked up the food carefully, almost like she was afraid it wasn't meant for her. Rashid sat across the table but didn't stare at her or ask uncomfortable questions. He simply allowed her to eat in peace. After breakfast, Amina stood up quickly, thinking she should start cleaning or doing chores. She waited for Rashid to tell her what work she must do. Instead, he spoke calmly. "You don't need to rush," he said. "Take your time. You're safe here." She looked at him with confusion. She had not heard such words in a long time. People in her past expected her to work hard from sunrise to sunset without rest. Being treated gently made her unsure of how to react. Rashid walked toward the window and opened it slightly to let in fresh air. Amina watched him carefully, trying to understand the person who had brought her here. He didn't seem angry. He didn't seem impatient. His presence was steady, and that calmness slowly settled into her heart. He finally spoke again. I know you've been through a lot. You don't have to tell me anything unless you want to. Just know that nobody here will harm you. Amina's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, but trusting someone felt difficult. She had learned to hide her emotions to protect herself. But there was something different about this house. The silence was gentle, not tense. The walls felt warm, not cold. And Rashid's words didn't carry demands, only reassurance. Rashid gave her a simple task for the day, just to sweep the living room and help arrange a few things. He said it kindly, without pressure. Amina nodded and started working quietly. She moved slowly, still unsure if any mistake would cause trouble. But she noticed something unusual. Rashid didn't hover over her, correcting her or scolding her. He allowed her to work at her own pace. Every once in a while, he passed by and said, "If you feel tired, you can stop and rest." She had never heard such sentences before. Rest? For her? It felt almost unreal. As the day passed, Amina learned small details about the home. It wasn't big, but it was well kept. There were simple decorations, warm colors, and a comforting silence. She found the kitchen neatly organized, and the sitting room filled with sunlight in the afternoon. She learned how to switch on the fan, where the cleaning items were kept, and which cupboards held the dishes. Rashid didn't treat her like she was less important. Whenever he asked for help, he asked politely. If she didn't understand something, he explained it without frustration. His voice always remained steady, and that steadiness slowly helped her heart unclench from the fear she carried. Later in the afternoon, Rashid sat in the small shop he owned, which was attached to the front of the house. Amina didn't enter, she just watched from a distance. Customers greeted him with respect, and he responded with kindness. She noticed people seemed to trust him. They smiled, they chatted, and he listened patiently. This made her see him in a new light. He wasn't loud or demanding like the people she had seen before. He seemed like someone who believed in fairness. When Rashid closed the shop in the evening, he called out gently, "Amina, come sit outside for a moment." She stepped out carefully, unsure if she should sit next to him or somewhere far away. He pointed to a spot on the porch where there were 2 chairs. She sat down quietly. The sky was turning orange as the sun began to set, and the air grew cooler. "I know you may not understand why you came here," Rashid began, "but I want you to know that I brought you to give you a safe place, not to make your life harder." Amina listened quietly, her hands folded together. "You don't have to be scared," he continued. "You are not alone anymore. If you need anything, you can tell me. If you want to rest, you can rest. If you want to talk, I'll listen." Amina looked down at her hands. She didn't know what to say. All she knew was that her heart felt lighter, though she didn't fully understand why. No one had ever spoken to her this way before. After a moment, she whispered, "Thank you." It was a small word, but it carried everything she felt: her gratitude, her confusion, and the tiny spark of trust beginning to grow. As days turned into weeks, Amina noticed more changes in herself. She began walking with less fear in her steps. She started waking up without the heavy dread in her chest. When Rashid asked her to help with the shop sometimes, she did so with a sense of purpose rather than fear. He taught her how to arrange the shelves, how to pack items neatly, and how to greet customers politely. He never raised his voice or showed disappointment. At night, Amina sometimes heard Rashid reading quietly in the other room. His soft voice made the house feel peaceful. She often sat near the window in her room, looking at the stars, thinking about how much her life had changed. She still missed her family deeply, but she no longer felt as lost as before. There was a sense of safety in this home, a feeling she thought she had lost forever. One evening, as she poured water into glasses for dinner, her hand trembled slightly. Rashid noticed and asked gently, "Are you okay?" She nodded but then paused. For the first time in a long while, she felt comfortable enough to speak truthfully. "I'm still scared sometimes," she said softly. Rashid nodded, understanding her without needing many words. "It will take time," he said. "But you don't have to rush. Just take each day slowly." Amina felt warmth spread through her chest. She realized she didn't need to pretend anymore. She didn't need to hide every feeling. Rashid wasn't someone who would get angry over small things. He wasn't someone who wanted to break her spirit. Instead, he seemed to want to help her rebuild it. As she washed the dishes that night, she found herself humming a small tune from her village, a tune she hadn't sung in months. It surprised her. She didn't even realize she remembered it. The moment felt like a small light inside her heart, warming her from the inside. Rashid heard her humming and smiled to himself quietly. He didn't say anything, but that simple act told him she was slowly finding peace again. When Amina went to sleep, she thought about how different her life had become. She still had fears, still had painful memories, but she also had something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Hope that life could be gentle, hope that people could be kind, hope that she could heal. And the most surprising thing of all was that this hope came from a stranger, a man who treated her with respect when she expected nothing but harshness. For the first time, she began to believe that maybe her life wasn't meant to stay dark forever. Maybe, just maybe, she had finally found a place where she could breathe again. Amina's days slowly began to take a new shape, different from anything she had known before. She started waking up with a lighter heart, though she still carried old fears inside her. Every morning, she opened her window to let in the soft breeze, and she stood there for a moment, breathing calmly. She had never felt this kind of peace before. It was still new to her, still surprising, but each day she allowed herself to trust it just a little more. Rashid treated her the same way every day, with patience and respect. He never rushed her, never raised his voice, and never made her feel small. Because of this, Amina slowly began to understand something she had never realized before. Kindness could heal a person, even if the healing took time. One morning, while she was cleaning the kitchen, Rashid walked in. He noticed how carefully she worked, how she wiped each surface with slow, thoughtful movements. He could see that she wanted to do her best. Not out of fear, but because it gave her a sense of purpose. "You don't have to do everything so quickly," he said with a small smile. "Take your time." Amina looked up and gave a shy nod. She wasn't used to being told to slow down. In the past, she had always been told to hurry, to work faster, to do more. But here, things were different. That afternoon, Rashid returned from the shop with a small notebook and a pencil. He handed them to her gently. "I thought you might like these," he said. Amina took the notebook, confused. "For me?" she asked quietly. "Yes," he replied. "You told me once that you wanted to learn how to write. I can help you with that. But only if you want." Amina's eyes widened. She had dreamed of learning for so long, but she never thought she would get the chance. She held the notebook against her chest like it was something precious. "Yes, I want to learn," she whispered. That evening, they sat on the porch with the notebook open between them. Rashid wrote simple letters and asked her to repeat them. Amina held the pencil nervously at first, afraid of making mistakes. But Rashid encouraged her gently. "Mistakes are part of learning," he said. "Don't worry." She practiced slowly, her letters shaky but full of effort. Every time she wrote something correctly, a quiet pride bloomed in her heart. She didn't realize she was smiling until Rashid pointed it out. "You see?" he said kindly. Amina looked at the page filled with messy letters, but to her, it was beautiful. It was proof that she was growing, that she was not stuck in the same dark place anymore. Days passed, and Amina continued learning. Rashid taught her reading and basic counting, and she often practiced by reading labels in the shop or counting items on the shelves. She loved that feeling. Every new word she learned felt like a small window opening inside her mind. One afternoon, while they were sorting items in the shop, a customer asked Amina a simple question. She froze for a moment, unsure if she should answer. Rashid nodded at her gently, encouraging her to try. Amina took a small breath and answered politely. Her voice was soft, but clear. The customer smiled, thanked her, and left. When the door closed, Amina turned to Rashid with a spark in her eyes. "I did it," she said quietly. "Yes, you did," Rashid replied. "You're becoming confident." That word confident echoed in her mind. She had never imagined someone would use that word to describe her. It filled her heart with warmth. Later that evening, Amina sat near her window, thinking about how much she had changed. She thought about the girl she used to be, the one who felt trapped, hopeless, and invisible. Now she was learning, growing, and slowly finding her voice. She whispered a small prayer of gratitude, feeling thankful for the chance to rebuild herself. A few days later, Rashid brought her a phone. It was simple, not very new, but it worked. He held it out to her with a gentle expression. "You can call your family," he said. "You should talk to them." Amina's heart stopped for a moment. She hadn't spoken to her family in so long. She missed them deeply, but she had always felt afraid to hope for contact. She hesitated, worried about what they might say, or how they might be living now. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. "Yes," Rashid replied. "You deserve to talk to the people you love." Amina held the phone with shaking hands. Rashid helped her dial the number she remembered by heart. The phone rang twice before someone answered. When she heard her mother's voice, her eyes filled with tears immediately. "Amina? Is it really you?" her mother cried. "Yes, mother, it's me," Amina whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm safe." She could hear the relief in her mother's voice, the kind of relief that made Amina's heart ache with love. They talked for a long time. Her mother asked if she was treated well, if she had enough food, if she was sleeping comfortably. Amina answered yes to all of it, and for the first time, those answers were true. When the call ended, Amina wiped her tears and looked at Rashid. "Thank you," she said with heartfelt gratitude. "I can never repay you." Rashid shook his head. "You don't need to repay anything. I'm only giving you what every person deserves: respect." Amina felt her chest tighten with a mix of emotions. She had never heard those words spoken to her before. Weeks turned into months, and Amina's confidence grew even more. She helped Rashid in the shop during busy hours. She learned how to manage small tasks, how to organize shelves, how to greet people with a smile. Customers often praised her politeness, and Rashid would simply nod proudly. Whenever Amina made a mistake, Rashid corrected her gently. She no longer feared correction. She saw it as part of growing. Slowly, the memories of her painful past lost their sharpness. She still remembered them, but they no longer controlled her every thought. One evening, Amina was preparing dinner while Rashid sat at the table reading. She noticed a small frown on his face. "Is something wrong?" she asked softly. Rashid looked up, surprised by her question. "No, nothing serious. Just thinking." Amina hesitated, then said, "If there is something I can help with, please tell me." Rashid smiled lightly. "You already help more than enough." Amina returned to the stove, but she felt proud inside. She liked being helpful. She liked being trusted. She liked being part of something that felt like a home. Later that night, after dinner, Rashid asked her to sit for a moment. "Amina," he began, "you have changed a lot since you came here. You are stronger now. You are learning every day. I want you to know that your future is yours. You can decide what you want from life." Amina listened carefully. Each word touched her deeply. "You are not here because you belong to anyone," he continued. "You are here because you deserve a safe place. When you are ready, you can choose your path." Amina felt emotion rise in her chest. She looked at Rashid with grateful eyes. "I didn't think I would ever have choices," she whispered. But now, I feel like I can dream again. Rashid nodded gently. And you should. That night, Amina lay awake thinking about her future. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel trapped by fear. She felt hopeful, like a door had opened inside her heart. She thought about her dreams, learning more, working proudly, becoming independent, maybe even helping others one day. She realized something important. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was healing. She was growing into someone stronger, someone she never thought she could be. And the person who made this possible was someone who treated her not as a burden or a servant, but as a human being with worth. As she drifted to sleep, Amina knew her story was no longer filled with darkness. There was light, now soft, steady light that grew brighter each day. Amina woke up one morning with a sense of calm she had never known before. The sunlight came into her room softly, touching the walls like warm hands. She sat up slowly and stretched, feeling a peaceful comfort inside her chest. Life had changed so much for her over the past months, and sometimes she found it hard to believe that this was really her life now. She had gone from a place of fear and hopelessness to a home where she was respected, valued, and encouraged to grow. She walked out into the hallway and found Rashid already awake, preparing tea in the kitchen. His movements were slow and steady, the way they always were. Amina had learned to understand his calm nature, and it always made her feel safe. He looked up as she entered and gave her a gentle smile. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied softly. They sat together in silence for a few minutes, sipping tea. It was a peaceful silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled with words. Amina enjoyed these quiet mornings. They reminded her that life didn't have to be rushed or stressful. It could be gentle and steady. After breakfast, Amina helped clean up the kitchen and then walked to the shop with Rashid. She had been helping him there for weeks now, and she enjoyed learning new things. She greeted customers politely, arranged items neatly on shelves, and even learned how to count money properly. The customers liked her calm manner and soft smile, and many of them praised her for her hard work. Each time someone complimented her, she felt a warm sense of pride. Not the loud kind of pride, but a quiet inner feeling that told her she was becoming someone she could respect. She had come a long way from the frightened girl who once stepped into Rashid's home not knowing what her fate would be. Throughout the day, Amina worked in the shop with confidence she never imagined she would have. When the afternoon sun became warm, Rashid took a break and sat near the doorway. Amina joined him, wiping her hands on her scarf. "You're learning quickly," he said gently. Amina smiled shyly. "I want to learn everything," she said. "I feel like my life is starting again." Rashid nodded. "It is," he replied. "And it's your life. You can build it any way you want." Ah, Amina looked down at her hands, thinking about those words. Nobody had ever told her she could shape her own life. The idea felt new and exciting, like standing at the beginning of a long road full of possibilities. That evening, after closing the shop, Amina sat outside on the porch. She liked watching the sunset because it made her think of endings and new beginnings. The sky turned shades of orange, pink, and purple, and she felt a quiet happiness fill her heart. Rashid joined her after a while, holding 2 cups of tea. He placed one in front of her and sat down beside her. Amina wrapped her hands around the warm cup and took a small sip. "You've changed," Rashid said softly. "You're stronger now." Amina nodded. "I feel different," she said. "Before, I didn't believe I had any value. Now I feel like I can do things. I can be someone." "You always had value," Rashid replied. "Life just didn't give you the chance to see it, but now you're discovering it yourself." Amina felt her eyes grow warm with emotion. She didn't cry, but she felt the weight of his words inside her heart. She knew he was right. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving, she was living. Over the next few months, Amina learned more than she had ever imagined. Rashid taught her how to manage the shop independently. She learned how to record sales, how to organize stock, and how to talk with suppliers. She also continued her reading and writing practice. Her handwriting improved, and she could read short stories without help. One day, Rashid handed her an envelope. "This is your salary," he said. Amina blinked in surprise. "My salary?" she asked quietly. "For me?" "Yes," he said with a nod. "You work here. You deserve to be paid." Amina held the envelope in her hands, unsure how to react. She had never earned money in her life. She opened it slowly and stared at the bills inside. Her fingers trembled slightly. This wasn't just money, it was independence. It was proof that she was learning, growing, and becoming capable. "Thank you," she said softly. "You earned it," Rashid replied. That night, Amina couldn't stop smiling. She placed the envelope carefully in a small box in her room, feeling proud of herself. She wasn't just living in Rashid's house anymore. She was building her own life, one small step at a time. Weeks later, Amina used part of her savings to buy a small gift for her family. A shawl for her mother, a cap for her father, and pencils for her siblings. When she called them, her mother cried with happiness. Her father's voice was full of pride. They told her how grateful they were and how much they loved her. "Amina, you have grown so much," her mother said. "Yes, mother," she replied warmly. "I'm learning. I'm becoming stronger." Rashid watched her from a distance during the call and smiled quietly. He was happy to see her reconnecting with her family and strengthening her bonds. Amina's life continued to grow brighter. She made friends in the neighborhood, women who admired her politeness and strength. They invited her for tea, taught her recipes, and shared stories. Amina felt like she was becoming part of a community. She no longer felt alone. One evening, while sorting items in the shop, Amina turned to Rashid. "I want to do something important," she said. "Something big?" Rashid raised an eyebrow gently. "What would you like to do?" Amina took a deep breath. "I want to help girls who were in my situation. Girls who feel lost and scared. Maybe one day, I can guide them. Show them that life can get better." Rashid's eyes softened with pride. "That is a beautiful dream," he said, "and I believe you can make it come true." Amina felt warmth inside her chest. She knew she still had a long way to go, but she also knew she wasn't the same girl anymore. She had become stronger, wiser, and more hopeful. Her past no longer controlled her. Her future was hers to shape. One night, as she sat outside watching the stars, Amina realized something important. She had been treated like she was worthless before. But Rashid had shown her something different. He had shown her kindness, respect, and faith in her abilities. Because of that, she discovered her own strength. She no longer lived in fear or darkness. She lived with hope and purpose. Amina looked up at the night sky and smiled softly. She felt like she finally understood the meaning of her journey. She had gone through hardship, but she had also found a place where she could heal. And now, she had a future filled with possibilities. She whispered quietly, almost to herself, "I am free now. I am strong now. And I will help others become strong too." Inside the house, Rashid heard her soft voice and smiled. He didn't interrupt her moment. He simply felt grateful that she had transformed into someone so brave and full of life. Amina closed her eyes and let the gentle breeze touch her face. She knew her story wasn't ending here. This was just the beginning of a new chapter. One she would write with courage, hope, and her own hands. She had arrived in Rashid's home broken and afraid, but she now stood tall, confident, and filled with dreams. And that was the true victory of her journey.